No, this was a long time ago. Michael Jackson is my husband, and Prince is my lover. Ooh. And I married Michael Jackson. My husband's name is Michael Jackson. I'm Mrs. Michael Jackson.
Egypt Sherrod landed back from a Mediterranean family vacation to find a cancellation notice waiting for her. No warning, no farewell special, no graceful exit negotiated in advance. Just the news that after 4 seasons and 19 million viewers, HGTV had decided Married to Real Estate was done. Most people would have taken that personally, would have gone quiet, would have spent some time licking their wounds before figuring out what came next. Egypt Sherrod posted a gratitude statement on Instagram and got back to work. But the full story of what happened between that June 2025 cancellation and where she stands in 2026 is considerably more complicated and considerably more inspiring. The woman who built everything first.
Hi, I'm Egypt Sherrod, TV host and executive producer of Married to Real Estate on HGTV and CEO of Egypt Sherrod Enterprises.
Egypt Sherrod did not become successful because of television. Television became successful because of Egypt Sherrod. That distinction matters, because once you understand the decades of work that existed before any HGTV camera showed up, the cancellation of Married to Real Estate stops looking like a loss and starts looking like what it actually was. Egypt Elise Sherrod was born on November 16, 1976 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She grew up in her grandparents' home. She slept in a room so small that a bed was the only thing that fit. She could open her arms and touch both walls simultaneously. No space, no breathing room, just a girl and 4 walls pressing in. She said later that this was where the dream started, not the vague childhood dream of being rich or famous. The specific dream of one day having a closet bigger than that entire bedroom. That concrete desire for space and beauty stayed with her, and it quietly shaped everything she eventually built. Her father and uncle were real estate brokers. Growing up, she absorbed their conversations about property, investment, and the specific kind of wealth that only land and buildings provide over time. Her mother was a top advertising executive. Ambition was modeled from both sides. Egypt did not grow up being told to be careful. She took her first real swing at 18 and began hosting a jazz radio show on WRTI Jazz FM in Philadelphia. By 19, she had landed her first full-time job as a music director at Philadelphia's 103.9 The Beat, the youngest music director in the entire United States at 19. Not in her city, not in her state, in the country. That single fact is worth sitting with. 19 years old, a national record in a competitive industry. Most people her age were still figuring out which direction to point themselves in. She built consistently from there. The radio career that followed was not a stepping stone. It was a serious professional life spanning 20 years. She rose to become the #1 radio personality at New York's WBLS 107.5. Her program syndicated in more than 60 cities. She interviewed Prince, Oprah, Leonardo DiCaprio, Martin Scorsese, and the late James Brown. A household name in urban radio long before any home renovation show claimed her. And quietly and simultaneously, she was buying property. At 22, she flipped her first property. At 24, she bought her first home. While everyone around her was spending on clothes and accessories, she was acquiring buildings. She understood something that takes most people decades to learn. Real income needs to go into things that hold value. Real estate was the foundation of wealth. She knew it from watching her family, and she acted on it early. The commissions she paid to other agents eventually bothered her enough to prompt her to get her own license. In 2002, she became a licensed real estate agent, not as a career pivot, as a practical elimination of an unnecessary cost. She was not leaving the radio. She was plugging a financial leak. The HGTV opportunity arrived the way the best opportunities always do, without warning. A casting director called while she was still on air. A show that would eventually become Property Virgins needed a host. Egypt auditioned. Egypt got the role. 4 episodes into filming, she discovered she was pregnant. She hid it from producers, afraid that a pregnancy would cost her the job she had barely started. The fear turned out to be unfounded. But that moment says everything about how hard Egypt Sherrod has always had to fight to protect what she builds. Nothing arrived easily. Nothing was handed over. She earned her broadcasting degree from Temple University, where she studied theater for a year at NYU's Tisch School of the Arts. That combination of telecommunications training and performance education produced exactly what you see on screen. Someone who understands the medium completely and inhabits it without being consumed by it. Property Virgins ran for 16 seasons, followed by Flipping Virgins. The career compounded. The business grew alongside it. The reputation deepened. But radio, real estate, and television were only 3 of the plates spinning simultaneously. The 4th plate was the most personal, and it would eventually become the show that 19 million people chose to watch every week. Mike Jackson, marriage, and the show that made it all visible. Most television couples are constructed for the cameras. Egypt and Mike were real before any camera ever found them. That is not a marketing line. That is the foundation of everything that made Married to Real Estate work in a way that most home renovation formats never quite achieve. The audience could feel the difference between 2 people performing a partnership and 2 people who had actually built one over years of real life together.
When you two first got together, what was that first conversation like about money?
Wow. Okay, that's
Was it your first
a very interesting conversation.
Mike Jackson, known professionally as DJ Fidelf, came into Egypt's world during her radio years. He was already established in the music and entertainment space. The connection between them was not manufactured by a production company looking for chemistry. It was the natural result of 2 driven people moving through the same professional orbit.
People would have gotten up and said, well, then this is not for me.
Right.
I was looking for someone to build with, and I can build with an honest person. If I know what I'm dealing with, oh yeah, we can do a lot together.
They dated for 6 years before marrying on September 11th, 2010 at Westmount Country Club in New Jersey. The wedding had a moment when Egypt spoke publicly with genuine warmth. Mike had a daughter from a previous relationship, Simone, who was 8 years old at the time. Simone had known Egypt for most of her life by then. She was too old to be a flower girl in the conventional sense, so Egypt created a specific role for her called the Chime Princess. And when Simone walked down the aisle, she was apparently shouting, "The bride is coming, the bride is coming," with complete abandon. The Grammy-nominated group SWV performed at the reception. That detail about Simone matters beyond its charm. It tells you something about the kind of family Egypt and Mike were building from the beginning. Intentional, inclusive. Thinking about the whole picture rather than just the occasion in front of them. Their family grew. Kendall and Harper arrived in the years that followed. 3 daughters in total, counting Simone. The household that Egypt had dreamed about from that tiny closet bedroom in Philadelphia was taking shape in Atlanta. But Harper's birth came with a serious health scare that Egypt has spoken about candidly. After being discharged from the hospital following the delivery, she was rushed back. Her body was holding fluid. It had gotten into her lungs. When she lay back to sleep, she was essentially drowning in the fluid accumulation. Doctors treated her for cardiomyopathy symptoms, a condition with a family history that can emerge during pregnancy. She was placed on a monitoring program. She recovered. But that experience changed things. The calculation of what mattered and why became sharper. Around this time, she decided to leave New York after more than 13 years in the city. Stuck in traffic near the Lincoln Tunnel one afternoon, pregnant, she had a simple thought. If something happened and she needed to get to her baby, she could not move. That was enough. She moved the family to Atlanta and convinced HGTV to move Property Virgins with her. The 16 seasons of Property Virgins established her as the most trusted voice in first-time home buying on American television. Flipping Virgins followed from 2015 to 2019. Rock the Block brought Egypt and Mike on screen together formally, first as judges in Season 2, then as competitors in Season 3, where they won. The win at Rock the Block was significant beyond the trophy. It demonstrated on camera what their professional collaboration actually looked like. 2 people with complementary skill sets who had been operating as a team for years, bringing that established dynamic into a format that rewards exactly that kind of genuine synchronicity. Married to Real Estate premiered in December 2022. 4 seasons, 19 million viewers during its broadcast run, airing in more than 82 countries. But the show's real significance was not the renovation, it was the representation. Egypt said it herself in an interview that has been widely quoted since. There was no true reflection on linear television of a black family whose marriage was working for an extended period without the reality drama attached to it. No manufactured conflict, no engineered crisis, just a married couple doing skilled work and raising a family and being genuinely good at both. She said that was what gave them the courage to pitch it. The show was working. The audience was there. The marriage was real. And then HGTV made a decision that landed like a blow nobody had anticipated. The cancellation.
Invited back to HGTV.
Oh, no.
And I'll say this, unless you hear it from us or we have our representation say it.
Many have been asking what really happened. Egypt Sherrod had just returned from an unforgettable family trip through the Mediterranean when the news arrived. She and Mike had taken the girls abroad, the kind of trip that families plan and look forward to and talk about for months afterward. The kind of reset that people who work as hard as Egypt and Mike genuinely need between seasons of demanding television production. They landed back in the United States. They were barely through the door, and the news was waiting. In June 2025, HGTV announced a significant restructuring of its programming slate. 4 shows were canceled simultaneously. Farmhouse Fixer, Bargain Block, Izzy Does It, and Married to Real Estate. No advance warning to the hosts. No farewell special offered, no graceful off-ramp negotiated in advance. Just a network decision delivered after the fact to people who had given 4 seasons of genuine work to a show that had drawn 19 million viewers in its broadcast run and was airing in more than 82 countries. Egypt confirmed the cancellation publicly on Instagram on June 24th, 2025. She did not wait for the network to shape the narrative. She spoke first, and she spoke directly. She said that while the chain of events leading up to this was disheartening, they were deeply grateful. Grateful for 4 incredible seasons, grateful for the crew and the fans, grateful that their businesses continued to thrive, and most of all, grateful they were still very much married to real estate and to each other, that phrase. The chain of events leading up to this. 4 words carrying a weight that the rest of the statement carefully does not unpack. It suggests that the cancellation was not a clean or simple decision, that something led to it, that there was a sequence of things rather than a single call from a network executive. Neither Egypt nor Mike has elaborated on what that chain of events actually contained. The network did not comment. The full story behind why a show with those audience numbers ended after its 4th season remains publicly unresolved. What the broader context does tell us is that HGTV was engaged in significant program restructuring throughout 2025. The cancellations were not limited to Married to Real Estate. Christina on the Coast ended. Battle on the Beach ended. Bargain Block, which had its own passionate fan base, was axed alongside Egypt's show. The pattern suggests corporate-level decisions about the network's direction rather than a performance-specific verdict on any single show. Season 4 aired from March to May 2025. 12 episodes, just weeks before the cancellation came. Season 3 had drawn 16.6 million viewers and streamed on Max. Season 4's viewership numbers were not publicly confirmed by the network. Egypt revealed one detail in the aftermath that the audience had not known. She owns the trademark for the name Married to Real Estate. Whatever HGTV decides about the show's future on its platform, the title's intellectual property remains hers. That is not an accident. That is the strategic thinking of a businesswoman who, from experience, understands that protecting what you build requires controlling what you can control. The fan community responded with the kind of sustained vocal support that most canceled shows never generate. The comments sections of Egypt's post filled immediately. Fans describe watching reruns. Fans are saying they have stopped watching HGTV entirely in protest. Fans are asking when she will be back, on which platform, and what she will be doing. She absorbed all of it with the same public composure she had brought to every previous professional challenge. But beneath the gratitude statement, the trademark detail, and the composed Instagram presence, something else was happening. Something that had nothing to do with television schedules or network decisions. Something that would require the kind of strength that no professional track record can prepare you for. Because the cancellation was only the beginning of what 2025 was going to deliver. And what came next was personal in a way the audience would not learn about for several months. When Egypt finally broke her silence in January 2026, the people who had been watching her since Property Virgins understood immediately that what she had been quietly navigating made a canceled television show look comparatively straightforward. The health crisis. Nobody saw coming.
I was rushed to the hospital twice, diagnosed with lupus. Then find out weeks later that it was a wrong diagnosis, scared me to death.
2025 gave Egypt Sherrod a cancellation. Then it gave her something considerably harder to navigate. For 5 weeks in the final months of 2025, Egypt disappeared entirely from social media. No posts, no updates, no Instagram stories, no engagement with the community that had been following her every move for years. Just silence. For a woman whose public presence had been consistent, warm, and deliberately connected to her audience across platforms for decades, 5 weeks of complete silence were noticeable. Her followers noticed. The comment sections of her last posts were filled with questions and well wishes, and people quietly hoping everything was okay. However, everything was not okay. On January 6, 2026, Egypt broke the silence with an Instagram post that stopped people mid-scroll. She started with an apology for the quiet, then she explained it. She had undergone surgery. The nature of the procedure remained undisclosed. She did not specify what required the operation or what the underlying medical condition was. What she did say was that it had been a scary road, that she was still standing, that she was still on the mend. Those words, a scary road. From a woman who had navigated postpartum cardiomyopathy symptoms, who had been rushed back to the hospital after childbirth, drowning in her own fluid accumulation, and who had faced every professional challenge she had encountered with visible composure. A scary road from Egypt Sherrod means something specific and serious. The fan community responded within hours, thousands of comments, an outpouring of prayer, support, and genuine love from people who had watched her for years and felt the personal nature of what she was sharing. And then she told them the next part. Just as she had finally gotten back on her feet following the surgery, a literal piece of marble fell on her foot and shattered 2 of her toes. 2 toes. Broken by a falling piece of marble, exactly when she was beginning to recover. Her response to this particular piece of information is perfectly Egypt Sherrod. She did not collapse into self-pity. She named it. The devil is absolutely a liar. She rebuked the energy of 2025 in its entirety and declared 2026 the year the snake energy was finished. Read between those lines for a moment. She was managing a post-surgical recovery while also managing a broken foot, managing the public residue of a canceled television show, while also keeping her businesses operational and her family steady, and her social media presence carefully curated to protect her own privacy and her children's. All of that, simultaneously, in the last quarter of 2025 and the first days of 2026. The post she published on December 29th, 2025, before the health update landed with a different kind of weight once the January post provided context. In it, she shared family photographs and wrote simply that she had been offline but not lost, resting in stillness, letting life breathe, remembering that not everything meaningful needs to be shared in the moment.
For my body, and I am happy to say I am off medication. The only thing I take is herbal supplements. I have lost, or you can't really see right now, but
she was recovering from surgery, but she framed it as a reflection on presence and intentionality rather than an absence explained by medical necessity. That is a particular kind of emotional intelligence, protecting your own privacy while still maintaining a genuine connection with people who care about you. Here is what makes the timeline of 2025 truly extraordinary. In the same period that she was recovering from surgery, losing 2 toes to a marble injury, and processing a television cancellation, she was also named Realtor of the Year by Modern Luxury magazine in November 2025. And on the same night, Indigo Road Design took home the Design 9 Award for Best Living Room. The same woman, the same period, surgery and recognition, cancellation and award, a shattered foot and a magazine cover. 2025 tried to break Egypt Sherrod across every available front simultaneously. Her health, her career, her physical mobility, it did not succeed on any of them. By April 2026, she was filming 2 new television shows. That is not a comeback narrative dressed up to sound inspiring. That is simply the documented record of what actually happened. And what happened next is where the story stops being about surviving 2025 and starts being about what Egypt Sherrod built on the other side of it. The business empire that never needed the show. The most important thing to understand about Egypt Sherrod is this. HGTV canceled Married to Real Estate, but did not cancel Egypt Sherrod. Not even close. This is the part of her story that the cancellation headlines consistently underestimate. The assumption embedded in those headlines is that Egypt's professional identity was housed inside the show. That, without the show, there was no platform, no income, no forward momentum. That assumption is wrong in a way that the actual numbers make immediately clear. Egypt Sherrod has been building a business empire in parallel with every television credit she has ever accumulated, not as a side project, as a deliberate parallel construction that ensured her professional standing never depended on any single network's decision about what to put on their schedule. Indigo Road Realty is an Atlanta-based residential brokerage firm where Egypt serves as CEO and managing broker. She holds designations that most agents never pursue: Master Certified Negotiator, Accredited Buyer Representative, Certified Residential Specialist, Certified Distressed Property Expert. Each designation represents a specific body of knowledge and a demonstrated level of expertise that the industry formally recognizes. This is not a vanity brokerage created to generate content for a television show. It is a functioning commercial operation with real clients, real transactions, and a team whose livelihoods depend on how well it's run. Then there is the design side. Indigo Road Design Group operates as the interior design arm of her business, a separate professional entity with its own clients, its own portfolio, and its own reputation built across years of delivered projects. And then, in spring 2025, the same year the show was canceled, Indigo Road Home Furnishings launched nationally. 307 JCPenney stores across the United States are carrying the line simultaneously, plus Kohl's.com, Amazon, Wayfair, Bed Bath & Beyond. A consumer product launch at a national scale was executed in the same calendar year that her television show was pulled. Most people launching a national retail product line would make that the entire focus of their professional year. Egypt did it alongside a television cancellation and a post-surgical recovery. The furnishings line reflects a philosophy she has consistently articulated in interviews and public appearances. Luxury, comfort, and sustainability can coexist. Good design should not be exclusive to people with unlimited budgets. She described wanting to make elevated living accessible to every home. That is not a television tagline. It is a design principle that she has built an entire consumer brand around. The publishing work runs alongside all of it. Keep Calm, It's Just Real Estate, her first book, received a nomination for an NAACP Image Award. Ignite Joy followed, both available on Amazon, both representative of Egypt as communicators and educators beyond the television medium. She co-hosts the Marriage and Money podcast with Mike on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and iHeart, a candid conversation about relationships, business, and purpose-driven living that reaches their audience directly without a network in the middle of that relationship.
Dream job. Back when I was a maid, I used to dream of being on the radio, and I was folks' friends in their head. Until one day, the rules changed.
In 2025, she delivered a TEDx talk titled The Phoenix Path. The title alone tells you everything about the philosophical framework she was building while her television career was publicly disrupted. The philanthropic work runs alongside everything else. Egypt co-founded 1,000 Women Owned, a nonprofit dedicated to lifting 1,000 women-owned businesses by 2030 through funding, mentorship, and personalized business support. The city of Atlanta issued a proclamation declaring August 23rd Egypt Sherrod Appreciation Day in recognition of her contributions to the community. She has rung the bell at the New York Stock Exchange. She received an Emmy Award nomination throughout her television career. Her estimated net worth as of 2026 sits at approximately $6 million. Built across a real estate brokerage, design, furnishings, television, books, speaking, and podcasting. Not one revenue stream, not two. 7 distinct professional channels generating income and building equity simultaneously. When HGTV canceled Married to Real Estate in June 2025, they closed one of those 7 channels. The other 6 kept running without interruption. An empire built across 3 decades that no single network decision could touch. And in 2026, she added 2 more pieces to it, because Egypt Sherrod does not rebuild after setbacks. She builds through them. And what she announced in April 2026 made the cancellation look less like an ending and more like the clearing of a runway. 2 new shows, and what comes next. Egypt Sherrod owns the trademark for the name Married to Real Estate. She said so publicly after the cancellation. Quietly, without drama, without turning it into a confrontation with the network that had just canceled her show. Just a fact. Stated plainly, the intellectual property rights in the title belong to her. That detail tells you everything about how Egypt Sherrod thinks. She was not caught off guard by the possibility that a network might one day make a decision she could not control. She had prepared for exactly that scenario by controlling what she could control. And when the moment came, she was holding the one card that guaranteed her freedom to take the name somewhere else if she chose to. She has not yet announced whether she will. What she announced instead was bigger. On April 13th, 2026, Egypt posted an Instagram video of herself walking through a set of doors that opened wide for her entrance. The camera followed her into a room set up for a celebration. She wrote in the caption that God was opening doors for people that were ordained long before they ever arrived at them, that no rejection, no delay, no person, and no opposition had the authority to cancel what God had already approved. The internet read between those lines immediately. 1 week later, on April 20th, 2026, Egypt and Mike sat down with USA Today and confirmed what the audience had already sensed was coming. 2 new television shows, both currently filming, both set for release within 2026. The first is called Home Abroad with Egypt and Mike, an international series. Egypt and Mike are taking the real estate and design sensibility they built across 4 seasons of Married to Real Estate and expanding it beyond American borders. The format suggests a show with considerably more geographic ambition than anything HGTV's domestic renovation format has ever allowed. The second is called Deserving Design, the Giving Back Show, the one Egypt described as speaking directly to their desire to help people, to build a legacy, to use real estate and design as tools of genuine impact rather than entertainment. She said it plainly in the USA Today interview. These shows reflect everything that is important to us. Those who have watched us for years know we believe in giving back and paying it forward. That is what we are passionate about. At the core, these projects speak to our desire to help people to build a legacy and to use real estate and design to build impact. Read that statement against the backdrop of everything the previous sections have established about who Egypt Sherrod actually is. The girl who grew up in a closet-sized bedroom, dreaming of space. The woman who bought her first property at 22 while everyone else was spending on clothes. The broadcaster who interviewed Oprah and Prince and understood from the beginning that a platform means nothing if you do not use it to say something that matters. Deserving Design is not a pivot. It is the logical endpoint of a career that has always been moving in this direction. The network and premiere dates for both shows had not been publicly disclosed as of late April of 2026, only that they were coming. Only that they were filming. Only that they would be released this year. Her fan community responded exactly as you would expect from an audience that had been posting in her comments for months, asking when she was coming back. With relief, with excitement, with the specific satisfaction of watching someone they had invested in prove that the cancellation was not the end of the story. The marriage at the center of it all remains exactly what it was before any of this. Egypt and Mike have been together for over 20 years and have been married since September 2010. 14 years of marriage, 3 daughters, a podcast, 2 television shows in production simultaneously, a furnishings line in national retail, a brokerage, a design firm, a non-profit. From cancellation to 2 new shows in less than 12 months. That is not luck. That is not timing. That is the compounded result of 3 decades of deliberate, unglamorous, relentless professional construction. Egypt Sherrod was never waiting for HGTV to tell her what she was worth. She already knew. HGTV canceled the show. They did not cancel the woman. Egypt Sherrod survived a network shakeup, a mystery surgery, 2 broken toes, and 2025 in its entirety. And she came out the other side with 2 new television shows in production, a national furnishings line on shelves, and a business empire that never needed anyone's permission to keep running. That is not a comeback story. That is just Egypt Sherrod operating at her normal speed.